It's funny how certain things can line up when you least expect it. As a college student, one of the greatest emails you can get is that not just one, but both of your Friday classes are canceled due to unforeseen circumstances. When I woke up earlier this morning and those Outlook notifications arrived on my phone, I started to think about how I wanted to spend my day. After all, the sky's the limit when your once busy schedule is suddenly vast and empty. However, as I looked outside my window at the overcast, gray, and quite cold day outside, I decided that today was the perfect opportunity to spend some time at the movie theater. That is, I decided to do a double feature. Now, as I scrolled through the showtimes available at my local theater and selected my first film, I was hard at work trying to figure out what other film I wanted to see today. I weighed going on a repeat viewing of something I had seen and reviewed before, but there was one specific thumbnail on the app that caught my eye. In the tiny thumbnail provided by AMC on their app, I saw some animated characters standing against a quite bright and cheerful backdrop, and the title Nobody attached to this image. I was sort of shocked to see only one showtime available later on in the day at my theater, but since it lined up with the schedule of my first movie of the day, I decided to take the gamble and just jump straight in. I knew nothing about the plot of this movie, what exactly it entailed, or really what it was overall. All I knew was that it was some sort of animated movie, and I figured I might as well check it out since I had the time and was already there. When the first movie in my double feature finished, I walked out to the lobby, scanned my ticket for the second movie, grabbed a bottle of water from the concession stand, and made my way to Auditorium 6 where my next movie was held. I walked in to see a completely empty auditorium, which was a jarring sight. As I took my seat and waited for the pre-roll advertisements to start, a few other individuals trickled into the theater, taking their seats sporadically around the auditorium, and preparing to witness whatever it was we were about to. We really probably had no clue. I wondered at that moment if these other people knew anything about the film, or if, like me, they had just decided to take the gamble and jump headfirst into whatever this movie held within its runtime. As the lights began to dim and Nicole Kidman's infamous AMC advertisement wrapped up on screen, I settled into my recliner and prepared my notepad, ready to analyze and pore over whatever would occur within this runtime. 2 hours later, as the end credits started to roll, I stood up and walked out of the auditorium in an absolute daze. To say I was shocked was an understatement. I was absolutely floored, to be honest with you. As I walked to my car, as I drove home, even as I prepared to film and record this review right here, I have spent the better part of several hours now nonstop just contemplating and poring over everything I just witnessed within the runtime of Nobody. I'm going to start off my review with one of the most accurate and timely claims I will make about the following film. Nobody is the best animated film I have seen all year. In fact, Nobody is quite possibly an all-timer, maybe one of the best animated films I have ever seen. And when I say this, I mean it with absolutely no hint or ounce of hyperbole in this statement. What this film has managed to do within its runtime is genuinely revolutionary and individual within the broad scope of the animation medium. In seeking to tell its specific story, filmmaker Shi Yu has crafted a timely, resonant, overtly hilarious, and wholly rousing feature film that conveys rich folklore and legend through such a distinct and individual lens. I absolutely just fell in love with Nobody from its first frame to its last. It is such a distinct feeling to just lose yourself inside of a film completely and to be swept up in its journey. And this is a film that allows audiences to do just that with ease. I mean, just while watching the film alone, one of the main points of conversation that popped in my head was how this was it. This was the definitive animated film of the year, which stands apart from the rest of the competition with the theatrical landscape because of how it executes and imparts its material through such a unique and wholly artistic lens. You see, this is not solely a kids film like so much of animation nowadays, but rather it's a movie that everyone can enjoy. The vibrant and colorful backgrounds and character designs will no doubt enthrall younger audiences. But the real core of why Nobody as a film works is because of how it imparts its narrative angle and ideas in such a capable and nuanced way. For all the praise I've heaped upon this film so far, and we're not even halfway through my review at this point, you might be wondering to yourself, wow, if Nobody is truly one of the best animated films of the year, why have I not heard about it until now? And the reason for this is because, although Nobody has remained a smash critical and financial hit in China by becoming the highest grossing 2D animated film of all time in the country, it seems that its reach to audiences within America and other territories has been constrained to say the least. This is not only deeply unfortunate and tragic, but also devastating when a film this good is not able to be broached by most audiences everywhere. The current release of Nobody that is playing in limited theaters now is the original Mandarin language with English subtitles, and there is no American distributor attached for an English dub to release in territories as of now. This accounts for the limited showtimes in sporadic theaters nationwide, and how there's usually only one showtime listed for the film each day this weekend. After this weekend, it's quite literally possible that Nobody will stop playing in US theaters entirely, disappearing from the theatrical slate without even leaving a trace. And this is such a heartbreaking thing to think about, especially for a film this beautiful and impactful. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this review overall, it's that if you're lucky enough to live in a city that has this film playing anywhere near you, do not hesitate to go see it over the course of this next week in theaters. Not only is this quite possibly the best chance you'll ever have of seeing the film so far, but supporting individual and independent works of animation such as this at the box office is such an important step in advancing the medium and art form forward. And the hard work and dedication of the entire crew on this film deserves to be awarded as such. Indeed, it seems that Nobody is the best animated movie that quite literally no one is talking about. In a just and fair world, the conversation surrounding this film would be at an all-time high, broaching profound respect and admiration for everything it achieves within its runtime. And in this review, I hope to start this conversation itself within the critical landscape of Nobody, in order to alert audiences to how profound, artistic, and genuinely motivated this film is in every single second with ease. There is so much to take away from this film, no matter where you look. Nobody, or the Little Monster of Langlang Mountain as its literal Mandarin translation indicates, is a spin-off of the popular Chinese web series Yao Chinese Folktales, and is a loose adaptation of the classic story of Journey to the West. Journey to the West portrays the story of a monk who journeys with his disciples to obtain Buddhist scriptures to point towards enlightenment and immortality. However, in a quite humorous and unexpected turn of events, the way filmmaker Xu Yi portrays the story of Journey to the West here is not through traditional means. Instead, such a story takes on a more comedic and often different approach here through an entirely different viewpoint entirely. Please note that minor spoilers for Nobody will be contained within this review in order to go into a more in-depth analytical aspect of the story. In Nobody, audiences are transported to a fantasy world to the location of Langlang Mountain, which is a remote mountainous region where small demons named Yao work under the rule of a powerful king to complete small tasks. In a stark contrast to the original story of Journey to the West, the protagonists here are instead animal demons who serve as integral parts of the story overall. We are introduced to one of these said Yao straight away in the form of the pig demon, who is getting quite bored with his mundane day-to-day life on Langlang Mountain. As he completes small tasks every day, he begins to reminisce with his confidant and companion the toad demon about what life might be like if he tried to forge his own path forward. However, this is interrupted in a jarring fashion when the mountain king in charge of the smaller Yao arrives to assess how clean each pot is one day, and discovers that the work of pig and toad is not up to par, and they've actually ruined one of the pots they cleaned. This causes Pig and Toad to run for their lives as the Mountain King sends his soldiers after them. As they hide away from the view of these other creatures, Pig Demon begins to reminisce about what life could be like without the stresses and worries of the mundane tasks and roles as Yao. This causes Pig to devise a plan. After getting word of the journey of the monk and his disciples, who are the protagonists in the original version of Journey to the West, and learning that whoever eats of the monk flesh will gain immortality, Pig devises a plan, against the wishes of Toad, to gather up a crew of his own consisting of a crafty weasel demon and a silent gorilla demon to pose as the infamous monk and his 3 disciples in order to traverse the vast land to earn immortality. All while the real group of protagonists from the story are hot on their heels. What makes Nobody stand apart in terms of retelling and recollection of Journey to the West is how it plays off of the original story beats in a way that feels fresh and authentic for what it tries to achieve here. So much of the humor and comedy that is drawn within this film occurs within the situations the main demon characters find themselves in as they pretend to be these mythic heroes, and quite inadvertently cause confusion throughout the land as the news of 2 traveling monk bands scattered throughout the land took quite humorous and unintentional consequences. If there's one thing I can say about Nobody as a film, it is that this is quite literally one of the funniest films of the entire year. But this is not because it purposely tries to be humorous like so many other comedy movies out now. Rather, the humor and comedy style here comes across in such a natural and wholly individual way, never feeling forced, but rather intrinsic to these characters, and what they feel and think throughout the runtime. This is seen especially within the jarring and clashing viewpoints of Pig and Toad, as Pig seems intent on pushing ahead brazenly in his quest for immortality, while Toad seems to be the more rational of the pair, pulling Pig back down to earth and trying to ground him to reality. These 2 distinct character dynamics cause interesting story beats and moments to occur with ease throughout the film, which mimics so much of the narrative structure itself as the story progresses. However, these aren't the only 2 characters within the film who garner humorous reactions to their circumstances. The Weasel, as the other 2 characters find out shortly, is very sociable. Maybe almost too sociable. He talks at 1,000 miles a minute, never letting up to allow anyone else a foothold inside of the conversation, and driving the Pig and Toad quite insane in portions of this film. And the gorilla demon, although he is a bulking and commanding presence, is quite shy and timid in all actuality, stuttering across his words with ease to the frustration of many characters within the film itself. Each character in this ragtag crew has their own individual quality or quirk, but this is what allows each to fit inside of the confines of their performance. Each character takes on a role as one of the characters within the monk's clan in the story, and must practice to ensure that they come across as naturally and as authentically as possible, which also leads to quite humorous moments that abound with ease. ease. For example, the sequence where the group stumbles across and fools the Dog Kings, who pamper and lather the group with an abundance of niceties and rewards, only to then later turn away and attack the real monks group for being quote-unquote fake, is a hilarious comedic touch and a brilliant subversion of the original source material in such an authentic and fresh way. If there is one thing to be said about Nobody as a film, it's how it takes the original source material and breathes entirely new life into it, broaching it for new audiences and allowing the filmmakers to run rampant with ideas throughout to great effect. As the group continues their quest, their roles as these characters become almost too good in a sense. In their journey to immortality, they stumble across more and more characters within this world in such a prevalent way. Another element I absolutely loved about this film is how expansive and vast the world building is, in which the setting is chock full of so much intricate detail, and the way the characters move throughout the setting with ease feels so grandiose and epic in scope. This goes hand in hand with the brilliant art style and animation of the film, which combines traditional 2D animation techniques with gorgeous watercolor renditions, create a stylized hybrid of the two that breathes new life into the material. The physical animation style of the characters feels akin to a comic strip or graphic novel, with over-the-top exaggeration and moments that lends a cartoonish flair to the material itself. However, this cartoonish style also allows for an abundance of expression with the film's more intimate and emotional moments, which we'll get into in more depth shortly. This style fits in perfectly with the style of humor within the majority of the film, allowing characters to interact with each other in a deeply comedic and rousing way, complete with slapstick and physical comedy that feels plucked out of The Simpsons or an Adult Swim cartoon. But unlike those properties, the humor within Nobody never feels unintelligent, which is why it works so well. Rather, each comedy beat here feels purposeful and motivated, highlighting and fleshing out each character and their emotional intelligence in such a deeply captivating and enthralling way. The best part about this element of the film is how you begin to deeply feel for and root for these characters on their quest because of their dynamics and inner nuances, which are painted so vividly for audiences to see throughout the first half of the film. However, it's at the halfway point in the film where Nobody transitions from a self-aware comedy into a deeply moving and motivated contemplation that feels so timely and important. As the main group traverse their setting and continue on their journey, they soon arrive upon the location of a temple, where the yaos that reside within harbor a dark secret. This secret is that these demons have kidnapped children from a nearby village and plan to eat them in order to gain more power. However, with the arrival of the pig and his group, they are tricked into thinking that these are the real monk and his disciples. However, once they learn of their trickery, the pig and his group are faced with an ultimatum by these demons. You see, these yao want the pig and his group to disguise themselves as part of the temple and work together with them to kill the monk and his group once he comes across the temple, therefore taking a piece of his flesh for themselves in order to gain immortality. However, in working with these yao, it means that the Yao King will in fact kill and harm these children. The pig and his friends are faced with an immense choice, with 3 of the members of the group choosing to disguise themselves and work together in this regard. All except for the gorilla demon, who insists that he is still in fact the Monkey King from their pretend escapades and is marched to his fate by soldiers within the Demon King's army. Faced with an internal struggle, the remaining members of the pig's group are tasked with a moral quandary. On the one hand, they finally have a chance to retain their status as immortal and their legacy as cemented, which is all these lowly Yao want for their lives. They want to be something more, and they think this will help them achieve that. Yet at the same time, they cannot bear the thought of these innocent children befalling a fate as terrible as they are about to. This point signifies a shift within the characters of Nobody, as we see these small demon animals as they begin to recognize how they can become more than they were meant to be, and can cement their legacy and immortality by helping others and saving the people closest to them. And it's within this portion of Nobody that the core and central message and emotional point of the film shifts into clear and startling focus with ease. At the end of the day, Nobody is not a film with a quote-unquote happy ending in any regard. The bittersweet and quite poignant conclusion of the film indicates as much, and this is fairly certain. Yet what makes this ending ultimately so impactful and resonant is how realistic and grounded it feels within the context of the story. This is not a film where these characters achieve their goals or aspirations that have been built up the entire film thus far. However, this doesn't mean that they find something less meaningful in the process. These characters might not gain immortality or recognition through traditional means, but their impact and legacy can be solidified throughout history by acting compassionately and helping those around them. And such a theme really echoes with devastating urgency around the film, especially within the final scenes of the movie itself. Throughout the film, we are not told the names of the animal Yao. At first, it seems like a small oversight, as if the film didn't care enough to actually give names to these characters for the sake of the audience. Yet as the film unravels and the devastating ending scene plays out before you, you begin to understand at that key moment why such a deliberate artistic choice was made to hide the names for these characters. You see, there is a specific power within names, and this is something that the film understands to an intense degree. In the final moments for these characters, as they begin to reflect on their journey thus far and the challenges they've had to overcome, each animal begins to say their name to each other, and then they cannot. You see, these animal demons become regular animals again after they use their one special power. And since these characters came together to use it to defeat their adversary, they now face a drastic change. However, as the weasel demon notes in this portion of the film, this conclusion isn't a goodbye. Rather, it's a see you later of sorts. And as each animal character fades and transforms into actual animals, losing their power of communication and going their own separate ways, the film explores such an earnest and heartfelt rumination on legacy and how the work we complete lives on after us, explored to such an individual and wholly rousing degree. And thus, nobody delivers such a wholly brilliant and invigorating animated spectacle that will leave you stunned and speechless from start to finish. That is, if you're able to see it. As mentioned, this is a foreign animated film that's independent. To say that this film will be able to stay afloat amid the crowded landscape of the theatrical box office around the holidays is difficult. As of now, showtimes seem to have disappeared for next weekend and beyond, meaning that now until Wednesday of this week might be your best or only chance to see this film in the US currently. That's why I'll reiterate right now that if you live near a theater that is playing this film, go to see it immediately. It's strange how this is the specific film that made me contextualize how terrifying and heartbreaking the theatrical landscape can be nowadays, where genuine works of independent art disappear amid the big budget and major studio slate that takes up multiple auditoriums per hour with ease and leaves no room for smaller films to breathe at theaters. As such, Nobody is not only a brilliant film, but an important film at that. I can confidently say that no movie this year alone has surprised me as much as Nobody did, considering I would not have even seen this movie or known of its existence unless my classes were canceled today. And if audiences are willing to jump headfirst into this experience, they might walk away feeling the same way too. This is such a special film, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I hope you all get the chance to see it because it deserves to be watched as such. That's why I'm giving Nobody a 5 out of 5 stars. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.